Hey folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier, a very special Pro Wrestling Interactive Live chat. If you happen to be around, it's an unusual time, it's spontaneous, but I figured why not. So this will be pro wrestling oriented. If you're not a fan of pro wrestling, you're welcome to check out other things on my wonderful YouTube channel. Plenty of stuff, Messier Mantra, Mike's original films, the archives, all types of great stuff. But let's talk some wrestling here. So the big controversy of the day, since Sunday, late night, or even into Monday morning, has been this dreaded or quite controversial CM Punk promo interview. What do they call it in AEW? The media scrum. And so a lot of things immediately as he was speaking, the controversy was writing itself. And then later on, we discovered there was actually, according to all reports, this was a real happening, not a staged wrestling angle, but there was some type of backstage rivalry. Good to have you back, Ahmed R. Good to see you, man. I remember you. Feel free to chime in. We're talking about the CM Punk, Young Bucks, Ace Steel controversy. Just my opinions. I have no great insights for you. I just watched my beyond whatever everybody else is reporting already. Just my thoughts on the whole thing. My buddy Joe Cronin just did a report on it. Apparently, there's been some police investigations are going on there in Chicago. Apparently, Ace Steel has been said to have bitten possibly Matt Jackson, I believe. Hi, Dale. How's it going? I did enjoy your article about your acting a few days ago, Dale. That was very good. And Dante and Jiffy Lube sounded very interesting to me. So talking about this pro wrestling situation here, for those that don't watch wrestling, we say, is wrestling fake, is wrestling real? Well, at times the lines are blurred. And for wrestling fans like myself, that's probably the most interesting of times. And so what happened early Monday morning, past midnight on Sunday night after this big wrestling pay-per-view in Chicago, what was very interesting was that the lines were blurred as this wrestler CM Punk, he's the champion of AEW. He was doing his promo, and he's basically telling us and informing us of what he thinks of his coworkers, his colleagues, referring to them at different times as children. Pardon my French, but I'm French. Referring to his coworkers as assholes, referring to them as kids, and not in a funny or familiar way, but in a derogatory way. He was really down running his wrestling brethren. Now, you could say, well, is that just to promote matches? Is that just to get heat? Is that just to get attention? Maybe it is. Or maybe there's a blurred line here between work meaning predetermined or on the schedule, and shoot meaning when you just kind of do things in a off-the-cuff manner. So Ahmed has got his opinions here, which I'm glad to hear. I think AEW is working the fans. Wrestling is evolving, and AEW are taking advantage of fans having backstage info on what's going on. I think this is what makes it so unpredictable now. I could be wrong. Yeah, and that's, like I said, even you with your opinion, you're not 100% sure, neither am I. I tend to think that even when Punk is, if you watch the whole media scrum as I did, when Punk starts talking about Colt Cabana, Steve Colton, using his real name, you can see that he's kind of fishing for a fight. It meaning CM Punk, he's not even really asked a question, not that I can see, about Steve Colton or CM Punk. He starts in on this reporter, Nick Hausman, who apparently did some improv in Chicago with Steve Colton, or Colt Cabana. And Punk just kind of uses that to tear into the guy. And even when Nick says, actually, we don't see eye to eye, meaning Nick and Colt Cabana or Steve Colton, Punk is like, oh, okay, well, you're kind of taking my spot here, because Punk obviously wanted to discuss this. He wanted to put his 2 cents out there. As some of my background research for this today, gentlemen, yesterday, I listened to the Art of Wrestling podcast, CM Punk and Colt Cabana, going back to 2014. 8 years ago is when Punk went on that podcast. He actually went on it twice. I think a lot of people forget about the second week he was on it, which was like a Q&A from the fans. But basically, this is what led to both of them being sued by the WWE doctor, and I guess for libel. And Punk and Cabana were found innocent, I believe. But Punk apparently paid a lot of the legal fees on behalf of himself and Cabana. And Punk kind of brought that up in this media scrum. Now, here's the thing. If you thought where the there's this Colt Cabana match with CM Punk. And to be honest, it would be really kind of hard to put Colt Cabana in that spot right now as a world championship contender. He's just not been presented at that level in AEW. For the smart marks like ourselves, that might be fun, but I don't know. So it tends to make you think that a good portion of this stuff is legitimate. Josh Johnson chimes in. In your opinion, Mike, if you was Tony Khan, what is right, wrong about AEW and what needs to be worked on in the near future? If you ask me, it's a fair option to WWE for weekly pro wrestling. Yeah. And, you know, in this last couple of years, Josh, you can go back on my subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, see plenty of AEW clips from Daly's Place in Jacksonville. I attended many shows, probably about 40. And a big reason of that, I was living about 20 minutes away from the venue. There wasn't a whole lot to do in 2020 or 2021, so there was wrestling in my local community and able to go and have a good time and take pictures and videos. So I did. I mean, I went to that House Always Rules show. I took a lot of video there. I went to a lot of shows. I've enjoyed AEW. One thing I've said, buddy, I said this at the time, I was enjoying myself so much going to the live AEW tapings of Dynamite, Rampage, whatever, but I never felt inclined to come home and watch the replay on television. And it kind of led me to this conclusion. I don't know if the commentary teams are that great for AEW. And I'll get kind of stiff here and I'll get kind of specific. During the pay-per-view All Out just a few days ago, I was very annoyed and aggravated by Tony Schiavone and Taz especially kind of laughing throughout that chop match, the Eddie Kingston match. Hold on. I'm like choking on a hairball or something. So I was very distraught. I was very disappointed with the commentary. And to be honest, Jim Ross has not, I mean, he's about 70 years old and there's nothing wrong with that. But his best days as a commentator were probably Mid-South or UWF, 1985, 86. And probably Jim Crockett Promotions, 92. And then probably Attitude Era WWF, 98, 99, 2000. So if you're listening to Jim Ross now, I mean, that's 20 years past his first or his third peak in the year 2000, 22 years past. It's another 32 years since, the early 90s and another 36 or 37 from the mid 80s. I'm talking about Jim Ross's peak as a commentator. And I don't want to say he hasn't aged well. I think he's aged pretty well for a guy who's fought cancer and done well and survived the premature loss of his wife, which is a horrible thing. But I think Jim, he, just like anybody else, you're gonna hit your peak and then you're gonna have your after peak. So I think it's still good to have Jim Ross there as an elder statesman, but this is not his best work, and I think that manifests in errors. And you can say they're just human mistakes and so forth, but for instance, when they had that big AEW Dynamite, it was like the 100th episode from Daly's Place or whatever it was. Jim Ross said something at the very end of the show, like, didn't he say there's the champion, the WWE champion, Kenny Omega or something? Like he made some type of error where he basically said WWE instead of AEW. Other little things like he's used the term Big Show a lot for Paul White and so forth. I do prefer AEW's commentary to WWE. Still, however, they need a good heel commentator. I really love Don West being a heel and a face. He was extremely passionate. Going back to Josh's question, the stuff that they do when like Steven Regal hops into the commentary booth for a John Moxley match or a Bryan Danielson match or Daniel Bryan match or Bryan Danielson match, why isn't the manager at ringside with his wrestler? It makes little to no sense to me. What good can Steven Regal do for his wrestler if he's at the commentary booth when Daniel Bryan or John Moxley or Claudio are wrestling? How is he helping them? Or even the young guy, the youngest member of that Blackpool Society, Wheeler Yuta. How is he helping them by doing commentary? I mean, call me a traditionalist, but where's Bobby the Brain Heenan should be at ringside, right? I mean, Captain Lou should be at ringside. Maybe they can come over to the commentary booth once in a while to spew out some nonsense, but I never quite got that. There was another thing on an AEW show maybe a week or two ago. They actually had 5. Yeah, I think it was during the Daniel Bryan versus Jack Swagger match. Not even Jack Swagger, whatever his name is now. And basically, why do you need 5 guys doing commentary? Yeah, and I should have put that ahead. Major Carver, great point. Ace Steel should get a raise for all this content he's created in 1 week. Here's the thing, Ace, or here's the thing, Major Carver, about Ace Steel. 10 days ago, nobody knew who this guy was. I mean, still now, I talked to a couple of friends today. They haven't been watching the AEW drama, although they're familiar with the company. And they're like, who's this Ace Steel guy? Well, I believe he was a Ring of Honor wrestler and an independent guy in the early 2000s, going back 15, 20 years. And had a decent career and was hired somewhere along the line as a backstage agent for AEW. I'm not sure if CM Punk had anything to do with him being hired or not. But Ace Steel and CM Punk apparently have some history. They worked that into the storyline, over a week ago when CM Punk was doing his promo for the upcoming pay-per-view less than a week ago. It seems like longer, I think. But basically, Ace Steel came out and hyped them all up and got in his face and did the Mickey Rocky thing. And then he made an appearance at the pay-per-view, Ace Steel I'm talking about. And apparently he bit someone in defense of CM Punk in this backstage media scrum. So very interesting stuff, folks. If there was a way for this AEW to once again make money off this, do some type of match. I mean, even if it's could you do CM Punk and Ace Steel versus the Young Bucks in a match? Or if this whole thing is legitimate, are the feelings too hurt? And if there's really legality involved, are we talking that some major players, maybe the Bucks or maybe CM Punk and Ace Steel, are going to be out of this company? And somebody made a good point the other day. I think it was my buddy Joe Cronin, who said that Tony Khan doesn't like to hurt anyone's feelings, or Tony Khan doesn't like to put his foot down. He lets, and the assumption, Jim Cornette always says this, that people are kind of using Tony Khan as a money mark, manipulating him. I don't know what to say. I mean, I think it's interesting. Tony does seem to favor CM Punk quite a bit. And I wonder now, in retrospect, is that maybe why Cody Rhodes left? Maybe he didn't like what he was seeing over there in that regard. Other things I wanted to mention in this whole situation here is I find CM Punk's, kind of glib comments entertaining. I mean, I find it to be good television or good YouTubing, to see him sit there. He's got the bloody face. He's eating the muffins, and he's just going off on Steve Colton, Colt Cabana, Adam Page. I find that to be entertaining, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it breaks the matrix. It's the rose that arises from concrete. It's not the same old stuff. We had a huge wrestling weekend. I still haven't watched the NXT show. But I mean, between All Out and Castle, the Clash of the Castle, I had a pretty good wrestling weekend for new content. That's not even talking about the old stuff that I'm always watching. So the CM Punk, the fact that he's able to get all the attention on himself is pretty. That's a real indication that this guy has, charisma, the it factor, whatever you want to call it. Maybe just the hype. Maybe we've all just believed in it. I mean, I never thought, and I don't think anybody does, that you wouldn't list CM Punk in your top 10 or your top 20 actual in-ring performers or in-ring wrestlers. I mean, he's decent, he's good, he's great, but is he as great as a Don Morocco, a Bret Hart, a Ric Flair? I don't think so. I think he's a level or two beneath that. But as far as the hype and the big match feel and the emotion, he's one of the top guys. I feel for Tony because he gets a lot of hate for his mannerisms when he's clearly on the spectrum or in some way neurodivergent. He seems like a nice and hardworking guy. Well, here's the thing, Major Carver, and I'm going to agree with you. I'm not going to break apart your analysis here because people have speculated that this guy is on the spectrum or perhaps he's using cocaine. Some people even accuse him of that because he doesn't blink sometimes. But, for me, he's a Richie Rich who's playing with his action figures. And now the action figures are coming to life and they're taking over. And I don't have a problem with that, to be honest with you, because of the Richie Rich that is Tony Khan, and he loves wrestling. I'm able to go to, Daly's Place in Jacksonville and watch Blood and Guts. I'm able to go watch Dr. Britt Baker win the women's title. I'm able to watch the Stadium Stampede come 20 feet away from me. Jericho and MJF beating each other up 20 feet away from me. So I've enjoyed watching Richie Rich play with his action figures. If I had his money, if I was born into the wealth that he was, I would probably do something similar. Of course, I would do it better, but that's okay. David John Reynolds checking in. Hey, Mikey, how's it going? I think David John is all the way in the UK, I believe. I'm trying to remember everybody. Sometimes I get confused. I know my other buddy Laza there's in Australia. I think David's in the UK. How you doing today, buddy? Talking AEW, talking this press conference. I like to call it a press conference. I think a media scrum. It's so pretentious. You know what I mean? It's so, I guess that's a shout out to football, as they say in the UK, or soccer, as we say here. I don't know. There's a lot of things in AEW that are pretentious. Terms like media scrum, trios title. What can you say? I mean, but you take the bad with the good, you take the warts with the hands, right? So what can I say? But I have enjoyed it. Major Carver. No, that's not cocaine. His personality is too consistent for that. I've worked with a lot of neurodivergent individuals. All of his mannerisms point to that rather than a drug addict. Well, I appreciate that input. That's good to know. All good. I see Teenage Con as one of the topics. Yeah, it is. And I'll say this, when I've done some of my little AEW video clips and so forth, one of the most, all the time, the biggest ratings getters on my YouTube channel are Tony Khan videos. People are fascinated by this guy. I think it's possibly because he's such a different personality or a different physical presence, at least, than Vince McMahon, who we've all been used to for the last 20 or 30 years, or even like a Jim Crockett Jr. for older fans, or for fans today, Triple H. Tony is not the big strapping guy who looks like a wrestler himself. He's the little guy, and yes, some wrestlers now, like, Tony Khan is bigger than, who was that guy that was Jungle Boy's buddy? The little fella. You know what I'm talking about. But Tony is, bigger than some of the AEW talents, believe it or not. But for the most part, most of these guys are much bigger than him. But he's got all the money. So it's I think Chris Jericho, I kind of, oddly enough, not that I feel for Chris Jericho, but he's been the veteran of this whole AEW thing since the get-go. He was like the first champion. He was Tony Khan's first pick, really, to be champion. And he must be looking back, looking over his shoulder at CM Punk and probably getting real sick of him, because I think CM Punk has kind of taken the spot as being Tony's favorite, meaning Punk has taken over that spot from Jericho. AEW needs Punk. He's literally destroying AEW. Oh, AEW needs to fire Punk. He's literally destroying AEW to the point Warner Discovery will easily cut them. Okay, so I'm trying to speak emojis here. AEW needs to fire Punk. Good question. And if these things are true that we're hearing about legal involvement in this, if the Jacksons, if Nick Jackson in particular, if he really did get a chair thrown into his eye, if hopefully it didn't hurt his eye, but if he's really going to press legalities, or the other Jackson supposedly got punched by CM Punk, if they're going to push the court thing, like legitimate court stuff, I don't know if that's going to help anybody. But would Punk get fired? And if so, who do you make the champion? I mean, I think that's one thing here with this whole unified title thing and Jon Moxley, winning the title on Dynamite and then just losing it, 10 days later to Punk on the pay-per-view. You've kind of, what do they do now? I mean, if CM Punk gets fired and loses the title, he has to forfeit it. Do they have Jon Moxley versus Barry Windham in a steel cage? I mean, it's a little Great American Bash 91 reference for the old school folks. What do they do if CM Punk is to be stripped of the title? What can you possibly do? I mean, you'll do something. I mean, but I remember the dying days of WCW. I think they had 2 world title tournaments, like within 3 or 4 months of each other. They had this giant, like 32 or 64 man ridiculous tournament. I think that's the one that ended with Brett beating Benoit. And then they had to do another tournament because I think then Brett got hurt. And if I'm remembering all this correctly, and something happened when they had that Benoit Sid Vicious match. And then Benoit got fired. So, I mean, if you think about the dying days of WCW, I'd hate for this current AEW situation to be history repeating itself. I'd really hate for that. Although the irony with all the comparisons that Tony has made about himself to Ted Turner or to the Jim Crockett Promotions or to Nitro, I mean, maybe it would be a fitting punishment for him. I don't know. Here's the other thing, folks, and I'll be honest with you. I've been on Team AEW for a couple of years. I've gone to many of their shows. I've enjoyed them. I've endorsed them. I continue to go to their shows. I was at a dark, a couple of weeks ago at Universal Studios. I was at the movie theater for the pay-per-view. But, however, guess what? If AEW goes out of business tomorrow, I've still got 300 or 400 wrestling discs to watch at any given time. I've still got all this Dragon Gate Pro DVDs I bought, over a year ago that I watched about 1.5 of them. I've still got a lot of stuff. I'm good, Carl. Talking, Carl's got his own YouTube channel. It looks like you've changed your name a little bit, Carl. You've made it more official. Carl Henry Neff Kate. I like it. Very, very rich sounding. Carl sounds like you own a yacht. And Carl with his yacht. Carl Henry Neff Kate with his yacht in Chicago. Right near all the action. So, of what happened with this AEW stuff. So anyway, my point is, I've got so much wrestling content, not even Peacock or the network, just like discs, old-fashioned DVDs, things that I can watch. You always have the YouTube resource. I mean, there's tons of stuff on YouTube. Not only subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, you can watch Wrestling Sun, my movie, my Ox Baker documentary, but you can also watch a lot of cool wrestling here on the YouTube platform. It would suck if AEW went out of business. I feel like I'm back in the 90s at certain moments in time. Nostalgia is a mad thing, Mike. Yeah, we will do a video soon, Carl. Don't you worry, buddy. I have been traveling quite a bit, so that's why we haven't done a video. I went up to New England. Now, as promised, we're going to do a special What's in the Bag. Yeah. That's true. As a matter of fact, you can go to Amazon and find Pro Wrestling Trivia by Smart Mike Messier. That's me. And you can read my wrestling trivia book. Okay, so we basically have, I can't wait. Looks like I've got some good reading coming up because this is a wonderful book. Guess who wrote it? Me, apparently. Mike Messier, Fighter, Play Basketball. This wonderful coming-of-age novel. So exciting. Look at my long hair on the back cover of this. I am going to try and grow the hair back, but it's been such a hot summer. I needed to give myself a haircut. My mother used to say, air conditioned yourself with the haircut. And for those that don't know, oh, geez, uh, very exciting. These wonderful chapter transitions. Everything's very exciting here. And this is a great chapter, The Lone Wolf Hunger. All this wonderful stuff in Fight or Play Basketball, an inspirational coming-of-age story, family story, single mom, all that good stuff. Now, on a completely different note, Open Chair Books, my book publishing platform company here, Open Chair Books, proud to present our very first non-Mike Messier writer. That's right, Kate Spain presents Bad Girls with Good Tattoos, a mid-2000s rock and roll grindhouse story. Fascinating. And Kate Spain here, who is this is her debut novel. She's the farmers market manager for the Starkfield, Massachusetts Public Library. This is a very sexy and raunchy and crazy story. So I suggest you all check it out. It's on Amazon. Kate Spain presents Bad Girls with Good Tattoos, a mid-2000s rock and roll grindhouse story. I can't wait to read this one, too, from Open Chair Books. Very exciting. Going back to the wrestling, today is Tuesday. I did not watch Monday Night Raw. I did hear some things that Bianca Belair did something with the Dakota Kai or Io Sky, and it's fine. Look, there's only so much life to go around. There's only so many hours in the day, days in the week, weeks in the month, months in the year. I've put a lot of time into pro wrestling. I've watched more than my fair share. I continue to, and I know people have been very much advocating that I give WWE another chance with Monday Night Raw and so forth. But I've kind of found my comfort level by just watching their pay-per-views or their live events, their network specials. I did like Clash of the Castle. I gave it an A- for what it was. I think there was just the 6 matches. I thought, although I disagree with the outcome, I think the Roman Reigns Drew McIntyre match was a worthy main event. I think they kind of should have put the belt on Drew, even if for just a month. I think that was a missed opportunity, and I don't know if the fans of Cardiff or anywhere else in the UK would be willing to shell out the same type of money they paid for this Clash of the Castle, knowing that they're not going to get a title change. I mean, this is like if Ric Flair had come into Texas Stadium in 1984 and just pinned Kerry Von Erich with a knee drop to the head. Why not? It's the David Von Erich Parade of Champions. Let me just pin you, Kerry, and I'll get out of here. I mean, so sometimes the WWE outsmarts themselves. They don't do the simple thing, which is just to have the hometown guy win the title, or the home country guy win the title. They're still pushing for this Roman Reigns Rock match. That's at least what people are thinking. I'll be honest with you. The Rock is 50 years old. Nothing wrong with that. But the last time he wrestled 10 years ago, he tore a muscle in his pectoral against the Cena second match. He tore a muscle in his chest. And when you're making big time movies, folks, when you're the star of, the Scorpion King, or the one that I liked was the Walking Tall remake that he did. He's been the Grindhouse, the Grindhouse gang, or the Gridiron Gang. I think I was an extra in that one, actually. But he's done all these movies, and he can't afford to risk his health for some stupid fucking wrestling match from his perspective, or more importantly, from the perspective of the film investors. Now, if Rock wants to take 6 months off, I believe a friend of mine, it might have been Eric or somebody else, was telling me, it might have been AJ Norris, somebody was saying that The Rock has allotted, 6 months off from filmmaking next year, 2023, I guess the first half. He's taking a break from film acting or film producing, and that would open up the possibility of doing this wrestling match. Well, possibly. And maybe it means a lot to The Rock, for The Rock to get in there with his cousin and have a great match. And he alluded to it on his TV show, The Young Rock Show. Maybe this is a big thing, but I can also see it happening where he's kind of penciled in for WrestleMania. He's planning to do it. And then the phone call rings, and they want to do The Godfather Part 4 starring The Rock. You know what I mean? And he's playing the Godfather. Or they want to do a new Star Wars movie or Star Wars TV show, and The Rock's going to play Darth Vader at a young age. My point is, I once held a guy accountable for quitting a project of mine. This is on Mike's archives here on the channel. Victorious, The Battle for Sanity. This actor was basically trying to quit a project of mine, and I said, "Hey, you can't quit. Aren't you a man of your word?" And he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mike, I'm a man of my options." And that's the integrity or lack thereof of most actors. And I think The Rock is an actor at this point. And if given a bigger opportunity with a bigger payoff or a bigger high-profile project or a role that he wants for his legacy, I think The Rock would take it. So I think they're putting a lot of these eggs in The Rock basket, which may or may not be hatched. That's my opinion. I mean, I don't think it would have hurt if for a month and then got it back in like some crazy match with Drew in the States and then maybe Madison Square Garden. I don't think that would be such a crime. It reminds me of this. Remember Starrcade 97? They were building up for Sting and Luger at Starrcade 97, right? For a whole year plus. Guess what they did in August of 97? Guess what? Lex Luger beat Hulk Hogan, I believe, on the 100th edition of WCW Nitro by submission, I believe, with the torture rack for the WCW World Heavyweight title. Luger beat Hogan before this Sting match ever happened. And then they did an immediate rematch 5 days later at Road Wild. I guess that would be Road Wild 97. And Hogan regained the title using the cheatery of the NWO. And that was in August of 1997. So then September, October, November, December, you've got Starrcade 4 months later, and they still did the Sting Hogan match. And they still got the record for most pay-per-view buys. Now, that show was not particularly good. I was actually at that show in person, had a lousy seat, had a lousy time. But that doesn't mean that the hype, the build for Sting versus Hogan, there was nothing wrong with that. It just happened to be that the show stunk and the match stunk. My point is they had Luger beat Hogan and Hogan get the title back, and then they went on with as planned. And with Roman and Drew, I believe, and a lot of people believe, they could have had Drew win that match, win that title, come back to the States, give Roman a couple of weeks off, and then they have Roman beat Drew somewhere, Madison Square Garden or in Orlando or LA, wherever they want to do it, they could do it. What else was I going to say? I had some other minutiae. I don't know. I mean, the wrestling scene is very interesting. Like I said, I'll probably watch that NXT show and get back to you. Luckily, Carl Henry Nefe Kate, the yacht owner in Chicago, has some new ideas for YouTube videos. Look forward to doing that with you, buddy. It'd be funny if Carl really did own a yacht. Like, yes, this is my yacht. So what else can I say? Was there anything else about this whole deal? The women's thing in AEW, Toni Storm, she seemed to have a little snide attitude people are picking up on when she mentioned Thunder Rosa. It seems like Thunder Rosa is not popular with the other women. And Carl's a big AEW fan. I appreciate that, buddy. I don't know. I think Toni Storm, I feel bad for Ruby Soho. Apparently she got her nose busted open, and she was nowhere near that interim women's title match. And yet, a year ago or so, she was really over with the AEW fans. So it seems like she's been left behind, like Kirk Cameron as well. What else can I say? I don't know. You guys have any more quick comments or any directions for where you want this to go? If not, I'll call it a wrap. I did do another podcast today. This is my second video of the day. I did the And Action film broadcast on Tom DiNucci YouTube channel, and you can look under my announcements. I put the link there. This was our 20th episode today. It was about a 9/11 film titled The Man in Red Bandana. Man in Red Bandana, a very good documentary. I have some good reading to look forward to today. I'm very excited to read my own book, and everything is fine. So let's see. Ahmed's got one final question. Oh, I enjoyed it. I mean, Ahmed, I did a post AEW arena report video. You should be able to see that on the playlist or under my videos, 3 or 4 or 5 videos back. Did a nice arena report because my buddy Shane McKenna and Matthew were at the show in Chicago, so I interviewed them as they were coming out. I actually liked the Jungle Boy Christian match, Ahmed, for this reason. It was different than everything else on the show. Everything else on the show was pretty much a big match, a 20-minute match, a 30-minute match, a 15-minute match, 15-minute match. This was like a non-match match. This was like a storyline match. I have not seen the movie Prey yet, but I will see it at some point. I thought this was a match that was storyline driven. It was heat driven. It was heel getting the advantage of the dumb baby face, but in a way that didn't make Jungle Boy look dumb. It just made him look noble, the noble savage, so to speak. So I thought it was good. I mean, I thought that the Jungle Boy Christian match, it was a good thing. Real heat, like not, see, this is what people I think get confused. People like MJF, right? But nobody's liking Christian right now. I mean, that's why Christian is really the #1 heel in AEW, not MJF. Because MJF, it's almost like he's presenting in too clean of a package, if that makes any sense. You know, he was on the Rosie O'Donnell show. He wears the Easter Bunny outfit for the AEW A Christmas Story promos. I mean, but you got a guy like Christian Cage, and he's, you know, doing the call me thing to Jungle Boy's sister. I think it would be great if they can get Jungle Boy's, I think it's a legitimate sister, to have a romance with Christian for on-camera purposes, because what a way to get under a guy's skin than to seduce not only his Luchasaurus buddy, but also his very own sister. I think that would be hilarious. I mean, I think that if you really want to tear down this Jungle Boy in order to build him up, you got to go to those places. Also, will Anna Jay ever get involved in this madness? And now she's recently turned heel to be with the Appreciation Society. But if she and Jungle Boy are still together in real life, if that just wasn't a passing flancy, be interesting if Anna Jay got involved with this whole thing with Jungle Boy and so forth. Maybe Christian can make a move on Anna Jay, and then Anna Jay has to decide who she likes better, Christian or Jungle Boy. So a lot of interesting things, folks. A lot of interesting things. Any more theories, questions, comments? Still haven't watched the movie Prey, but I will see it. Probably going to go see the movies tonight. And I recently saw, this was good, Jaws in 3D. Gentlemen, if you've never seen Jaws on the big screen, or if it's been a while, if you've got a theater near you, AMC and Cinemark, I think both have this experience. The actual 1976 Jaws film with the 3D glasses, and it's really good 3D work. It's not cheesy. It's not the old school red and blue tinted glasses. It's the new school, real 3D type of thing. And also, I did see the Invitation movie, and I'll be giving a review about that soon. All right, that's about it. YouTube channel, all these wonderful books you should all buy, Amazon and so forth. Go to the upper right for the links, and have a nice day, gentlemen.